So welcome everyone. It's always an interesting experience. This is my first webinar for the year, and so for you guys that get to sit at the other end of your computer and have your computer speaking to you from nowhere, imagine what it's like me sitting here and looking at my computer and just kind of forlornly clicking the buttons forward and talking to my computer, hoping that there's someone out there that can hear. So I'm going to talk to you today about time management, and I'll explain my background in a minute, but suffice to say that everything that I'm going to talk to you about today is stuff that I have and would tell tradies and builders if they were having issues with time management. So this is all a compilation, if you like, of all of the different things that I've done that have worked with other builders and tradies, and some of the common problems that they have, and maybe some easy to remember ways to go around it, and also, you know, what is and isn't possible. So we'll get straight into it. And like I said, it's very practical. I know Kerry said to hold the questions to the end, and I know that we've got a bit of a crowd today, so if there's lots and lots of questions, then Kerry will probably save a lot of those to the end. But Kerry, if there's something that's pertinent, I'm not explaining something properly, just shoot that question through so that I can make sure that I'm not running off on my own tangent and not explaining things properly. So let's get started. So like I said, timing's everything. So there's a lot of content in this workshop, and the reason for that is that a lot of things are different for different people. So there's one particular little trick that might stand out to you that's going to really help you get control of how your days flow, and then it might be completely relevant to someone else, and then the next slide really speaks to them. And so different little tools suit different people, and they suit different roles that people have, and some people are tech savvy and some people aren't, and all that. So what I would like to do today is present you with all of those tools and give you an explanation of them, and then the ones that appeal to you, make a note of. Kerry is able to send through the PowerPoint to everyone afterwards, so you don't have to write down notes if unless that's the way that you want to learn, because we were able to send through the slides for you as well. So these slides are going to be roughly, you know, we've got roughly working out timing, see, planning ahead, we've got roughly a minute on each slide. So some of them are really much quicker than that, some of them will take a bit longer than that, but we will be going through a fair bit of content, so just sit back and listen, and like I said, just take notes about the things that actually speak out to you that you think may help you in whatever it is that you do from day to day. So just a really quick introduction to me for anyone that hasn't been on a webinar before. I did a few last year. My background is originally I owned and ran businesses in the franchising sector, and then after that I became a business coach, and through my background was sort of in home services, and so through that I ended up working almost exclusively with trades and property businesses, and became a business coach that specialised in working with builders and tradies really. At that point I got in cahoots with the HIA, and so I've been volunteering to present for the HIA for 7 years this year. Today I'm speaking to 330 builders in person, plus I think there's about another 150 asking for the recording. So after this webinar I'm going down to the Victorian office of the HIA to do a little workshop down there. So it's something that I get a great deal out of as well. Not in terms of work, because I'm not always looking for work, I'm quite busy, but I get a lot of satisfaction out of it because I just feel that this industry doesn't get a lot of information about the business stuff, and doesn't get a lot of information that's relevant or that's presented in a way that makes sense to you. And so I think that if I can get some of that information out to the industry, that can make a real difference in the way people's families go, how financially secure some of our builders are and things like that. So it's something that I really have a great passion for. My business is called Graceful Solutions, that specialises in low-cost marketing, and I've just partnered with a website company who I've been working with for a while to offer websites under the Tradesman's Choice banner, which I just wanted to kind of reflect again that passion that I have for doing marketing, but just for the industry. So that's a little bit about me. We'll go on and just get cracking into this time management stuff. If you've got any questions about me, just shoot me an email and I'll send you a bio. So firstly, some observations, and so this is over the last 10 or so years working directly with builders and tradies and people in the property markets, is just some of the things that have, you know, been like those little smacks in the face of a reality check, I suppose, of the way that things are. So the first one is to think about the most successful person you know. So think about, especially if you know someone else in the industry. So if you know another builder who's one of those ones that's, you know, either one of those ones that's always got a waiting list, never has to advertise and just sort of cruises through, or one of those ones that's got, you know, up around the 50, 100 a year and got quite a boutique consistent business going, or even if you've got your brother-in-law runs a financial business, or your mother runs a florist, or anyone that you can think of that's really successful, and think about that person. Does that person have free time? So the person in business that you already know, are they running around like a crazy person, like trying to keep in touch with everyone and trying to keep up with all the tasks that make up their business, or are they generally quite happy to sit down and have a chat and have a cup of coffee with you? And you'll find almost categorically that people that are really, really successful in business and people that are successful financially also tend to have that life balance. And so it's something to take note of, that working harder and harder and harder and harder is not necessarily the way to end up like those people of having that balance, because somewhere along the line you need to make some changes where you're not working that hard, otherwise you don't have the opportunity to enjoy what you've done either. So it's sort of a mixed journey. Is getting your time under control is also a journey about not having to be the one in the business that does everything, because if that's always you, then you're never going to be able to have a break, basically. Second thing is that you can't make time. We already know this, but let's just rub it in a little bit. So the average lifetime is 4,000 weeks long, but the real point to that is there is no one-fits-all magic wand that gives you time management. There is nothing in this that, unless it's applied, is going to make a difference to how your day is, but there is lots of tools that can help you make a difference with that. And the last one is that, and this is very, very common, especially with builders, that if you're doing, if you're going to have to take a year's break and you had to hire someone to do your job for you, and to do that you had to put 3 individual jobs on Seek to hire 3 individual full-time people to do your job, then time management alone is not going to get you out of that. So if you are going to need to you're physically doing the jobs of 2 people or 3 people, or you're physically working more hours than any person that replaces you would be able to do, then time management alone is not going to fix that. The other thing that we need to do is make some more money in the business and then work out what parts of your job can be outsourced to other people, because you can't time manage yourself out of having 2 or 3 or 4 jobs. You can time manage 1.5 jobs into being an acceptable work-life balance, but you can't time manage yourself out of having to be everything if the business is of a size that that's unreasonable. So that's just something to keep in mind. Another point on that you can buy time. So one of the reasons why I sidelined out of business coaching with builders and got into marketing was because I realised that if you were making decent money, that you could actually work out all the other problems, so time management problems, system problems. You can work that stuff out if you've got the phone ringing. So having a decent revenue and, more importantly, making a profit, as we know, not always the same thing, can actually buy you time. So whether that's by outsourcing some things, whether that's by getting like business management software that's especially for your industry, getting experts to help you, whatever it might be, that time allows you to carve out some space where you're not having to work in the business. And so whether you use that space to go on a holiday, or whether you use that space to be thinking about where you want to take the business next, that downtime will actually give you, to sort of paint a picture, you know how most of the time if you have a creative idea about the business, you're usually having some sort of downtime. So often you're usually driving or in the shower or on the holiday. Every time you go on a holiday, you come back with a brilliant idea for the business. If you haven't had one for a while, ask someone who's had one and they'll tell you that that's the truth. And so what happens is time gives you that space to have a creative thought about the business, which will usually lead to you making more money. So making money is the key to having the time, but having the time is the key to making the money. So there is the quandary that we find ourselves in. And so what we want to do at the start is just carve enough time to start being able to work on the business a little bit and kind of create some space so that the business can do a bit better, and then that will give you a bit more time, and so on and so forth, until you've got a decent balance between time working and time not. So every little piece of time that you win back from the business where you don't have to be doing the day-to-day stuff, that's going to help you get to the end point of not having to be working like a crazy person all the time. Having money and then also having some time gives you the chance to actually enjoy it. And so what I've got here is a little personal trainer, and so this is, systems are hard but discipline is way harder. And so what I mean by that is getting time management under control is a lot like being on a diet, where you can know what the tool is, but then you also have to put it into place every single day, and you have lots of opportunities to kind of forget where you're up to and go back to how things were and not get yourself back on track. And that's actually, exactly the same as what time management's like. And so while it's hard to put systems into your business, it's much harder to have to every single day make that choice to be disciplined with your time management. And so some of the things that I'm going to show you are systems that you can have where at least you can just follow the system. You don't have to think every day, no, I can't do that yet because I should be doing this, and keeping your discipline in check. It's much better to have some systems in your business that make it easy for you to be managing your time. So hopefully that makes sense. So we'll just pause for a second before we get into those tools, and I want you to think about, or if you've got a pen and paper, just write down for yourself, what are some of the reasons that you chose to go into business? And remember that we chose to go into business. We could have chosen to stay on wages forever, but something happened, and we either thought or someone told us you're crazy to not be going out on your own, and we went into business. And so what were the reasons why you personally went into business way back when? And now I want you to think about what those particular reasons. So if you got into business for more money, for example, do you feel like you have more money now? If you got into business to have a better lifestyle, do you feel that you have a better lifestyle now? And so hopefully a lot of you can answer yes. And we do have this thing called the new standard of normal. So what that means is that it's very hard to remember how bad things were before. So if you're now in business for yourself and it kind of sucks a lot of the time, but actually you can take all school holidays off, and you're paid off your house quicker than you would have with your own wages, and da-da-da-da. It may be that things are moderately better. And so hopefully many of you can say that, but unfortunately I know that many of you will say that no, things are actually worse than when you're on wages, and many times you'd wish that you were back on wages. So hopefully, like I say, these tools are about carving out a little bit of that time to be able to then work on improving things. And the last thing for you to think about as we go through this workshop is, if you did have some spare time, what would you change about in these areas? What would you change about how you interact with your family? What would you change about your health? Because if you don't have a good enough reason, time management, like I say, time management is like going on a diet. You've got to give up some bad habits, and so it can be challenging. It can be a lot easier to slip back into that juggling that you've always done. And so it's good to have in mind what are some of the reasons why you're doing it, because if you don't have a powerful reason, it can be very easy to slip back into that running all over the place that you've been doing. Hobbies is a great one, because usually what happens is between the family and the business there's nothing left of personal time. A lot of the time when I talk to guys about what their hobbies are, they haven't had one for 10 or 20 years. A lot of the time their friends have stopped calling them to go play golf because they've said no too many times. And so it's good to start having a goal to shove something into your week that's just for you. So it's not about necessarily the family, and it's not about work, that it's just about something that is just time for you. And that will also be of benefit to the business, which we'll talk about a bit later. But if you can just imagine that you're the business's best piece of equipment, and so we need to keep you in running order, and one of the things to doing that will be to be giving you a little bit of fuel and be giving you a little bit of downtime as well. So in terms of your business, what you want to look at is what are the resources for the perfect business. So this is something to do not today, but definitely grab the slides and have a look at this and say, what would be, for my perfect business, what would be the roles? And at the moment you might be doing all of those roles, and that's fine. But if you think, oh look, down the track, if we were twice the size, I'd love to have someone that was estimating, or I'd love to have someone that was helping with sales and marketing, or I'd love to have someone do the books. And it doesn't matter if you're doing both of those jobs at the moment, but it's what you want to have is a vision of what you would be doing if things were a bit bigger, because then slowly over time that's what it'll get to. So thinking about what would be the perfect business for you, and also with each of those roles, how can they return on investment? And a lot of the time is if they're doing some of the stuff that you don't have to do anymore, you can just get on with doing, speaking to the customers and moving projects along and doing sales, which is the stuff that you should be doing and probably the stuff that you get a kick out of anyway. And the last little bit of self-analysis before we move on to more positive things is who is in control of your business right now. And so why I've put a picture of a smiling, lovely customer there is because even the most smiling, lovely customer is no good if they're in charge of your business. What we want is you in charge of your business and still delivering fantastic customer service, but that you're calling the shots, you're setting the schedule, you're listing out those terms of engagement of saying, when you work with us, this is what you need to do. And once you get to that point, you don't have any rubbish customers anymore. You don't have to deal with the people that aren't willing to fit in with your process. And if you're thinking to yourself, that can't be done, I could never, tell a customer that they have to engage with us in the way that I want, you can, but what it does mean is that you probably need to have a bit more inquiries, because when you're busier with more inquiries, then you feel more okay about saying to clients, you need to fit in with this process. And having clients fitting in with your process is one of the big keys to time management in this sort of a business. So if you're able to say to clients, for example, I only return phone calls after 4 p.m. or I only come and see people at their homes on Tuesday nights, then suddenly you're in much more control of your time. So what I want you to think about is how can you be, in a completely polite way, running the show rather than having the clients or the suppliers or the tradies or the contractors running the show and you just running around doing what everyone else, working around everyone else. So now I've probably depressed you far too much, so let's move on to something a little bit sunnier. Does anyone have any questions there, Kerry, that I need to clear up before I go on?
No, all fine. But lots of questions for me just about audio, but none for you at the moment. I'm sure there'll be lots at the end though.
My audio is working okay though?
All good, thank you. I think it was just at the beginning there where I dropped out for that minute.
We got your bullet points though, so we all caught up pretty much once we got those bullet points.
Great.
Okay, so here's some advice from me, and then I'll give you a whole heap of specific tools. And like I said, you only need to note these down if it's something that you think is worth knowing, and they'll all be in the slides that we send out anyway. So the first thing that you need to think about, and the upmost thing that you want to be thinking about, is what are the true things that you do that are high value? And what are the things in your business that are not high value? And often this takes speaking to someone else who knows you well, because often the problem is that we're a little bit too humble and it's hard for us to see what it is that we're good at or what it is that makes money. And so it's good to sit down with someone else that knows your business and think about what are the truly high value things that you're doing. And they'll be, if you think about what's the best value hour that I could spend in my business, how could I make the most money in the least amount of time in my business? And so it's going to be things like that you make a lot of money in your business at the time when you sit with a client and go through a quote or a proposal with them, and then they shake your hand and sign off on it. That half an hour is extremely well spent because you've probably made 20, 40 grand. 50 grand, 100, whatever it is at the time. The time that you spend having coffee with a new architect or working on your first quote for a new architect is high value time. The time that you spend putting together a new website that's going to make you look like you're have a difference and that you're the kind of builder that people want to go with, that's going to be a high value use of your time. all of those sorts of things, shopping around for suppliers and finding a more high quality supplier that's happy to give you free delivery or whatever it might be, is good value of your time. So you're thinking about what is the good value things that you're doing as the owner in your business, as opposed to going down to the hardware shop and picking up supplies, or running down to the corner store to get milk, or all of those sorts of things that can kind of chew up into your time. So the first thing is for you as the owner to understand what are the things that you that are high value, and usually they'll be the things that you're good at and that you enjoy anyway. So if you're an excellent project manager, well, that is going to be something that's high value because you're going to be finishing jobs on time and on budget, which is good for everyone. So really getting clear on and thinking about what are the things that you enjoy, what are the things that are making you money. You'll usually find that it's about 10% of what you're doing is actually making you money, and the rest of it's taking money back out again. So just being clear on what are the things that are making you money is already going to start helping you get things under control. Once we've got a little bit of money, we can buy other people's time, and even before that, you can buy other people's time knowing that you're going to use it to do use that time to do something more valuable. But the other things you can do is you can devote more time to doing what is important. So if you know what are the important things, you can give them more of a chunk of your time. You can choose more smartly. That's a great phrase, choose smartly. You can choose more smartly about where to spend your time and be more planned about where you spend your time. You can control what you're doing within that time, and you can also control the intensity with which you do things. So that's called being present. And so if you are doing high value things, that you can be 100% present and really do them at 110% and get better value out of that time that you're spending, if you know what I mean. And everyone knows exactly what I mean, that when you spend a whole day doing lots of things but none of them really with your full intensity, that instead of that, do a few things, make them the important things, and do them full tilt. Okay, so my first piece of advice with a random picture, which I'm afraid will mean nothing when the slides come through, but like I said, just write down if anything's important to you. And this is my favourite word at the moment, and this word is triage. And so what this comes from is if you go into a hospital, that there'll be a triage nurse there who will assess your situation and work out where you go. And so if you're an extreme emergency, she'll send you straight through. If you're not, she'll get you to wait in the waiting room, all those sorts of things. And so what I want you to start doing with your quotes and with your return phone calls and with your clients and with all these things that are all demanding your time is start to triage them and start to work out, okay, well, these 3 quotes I have got a good chance of winning and they're a reasonable profit, so I will do those 3 first. And this one, it might be due earlier, but it's really, really small, or I don't have a great chance of winning it, or I think I'm just doing it to make up the numbers, so I won't do that one first. And so what you're doing is actually taking a look, I've got 10 people to call back. Which are the 2 that are actually critical that I call back? Which are the ones that are going to be value for my business, not which are the ones that are screaming the loudest? And so you start making decisions about what's the priority for your business, not who is demanding your attention the most. Okay, the next rule is the $50 rule. This basically says that if there is anything that you are doing that you do not love, that costs less than $50 an hour to outsource, get rid of it quick. And the prime example is a bookkeeper. So if you hate doing the books, then that probably tells me that you're probably awful at them, and that tells me that it's probably taking you 10 times longer than it would take a bookkeeper to do it. So why are you sitting up till 1, 2 in the morning doing your VAS when you could pay a bookkeeper probably $80 to do that for you, and then you could get on site, manage the guys, save $2 grand, shop around to suppliers, or even better, speak to a new client, win a new job, take your business from here to there. So anything that costs less than $50 an hour, you guys are all in a position where you can, if you pick up 1 extra client, you can pay to outsource almost anything you want. So if you make a commitment to outsourcing 20% of your work that you hate, or a whole big chunk of tasks that you hate, that you're no good at, that take you too long, and then use that time to either make yourself feel like there's more of a balance, and then that's going to make you more attractive as a person to work with, just by being more kind of settled, if that makes sense. And you say, okay, now that I've got rid of all those tasks that I hate, my commitment is that I'm going to go out and get one extra client this year. And that's how you do it, and just do the bits that you like. So things that would fit under that rule: house cleaners, absolutely. If both partners work, get a house cleaner so you can spend the weekend playing with the kids. Same with the gardening, same with all those little jobs around the house, all those things, just outsource them. Bookkeeping, we'll go into some of the other types of things in your business that you can outsource. Filing, you can often get someone to come after school that's in year 12 that you know, family, friends and stuff is really good if you've got a home office. And you can pay them $10 an hour to come after school for an hour and just do all your filing, faxing, photocopying, maybe, you know, emailing quotes off to tradespeople emailing plans off to tradespeople, running down to Officeworks and photocopying plans, all those sorts of things. You can get juniors to come and do those very, very cheaply, and then you can just get back to doing the bits that you're doing that make you the money. So like I say, even if you don't think that you can afford staff, nowadays I would much rather see you having lots and lots of part-timers than having one full-timer anyway. And there's lots of ways you can have those part-timers. So they don't have to be in your office. They can be someone that's got skills. They can be someone that's just willing to help. If you've got a niece or a nephew, or you know, someone like that that would love to help just to learn about business a little bit, often you've got people like that. You've often got partners or parents that are willing to help you out for a couple of hours a week just to help you and just to see that you have more balance, and they get to see more of you, I suppose. You can have full or part-time or casual. You can have people that cost a lot of money that give you big bang for your buck. You can have people that work for cheap, and you can absolutely have people for free. You can have people on wages, contractors, trainees, volunteers. You can have people that are local. You can have people that are interstate. You can even have people that are overseas. And so the first step is just knowing what you need help with, and that's why I was saying look at what your high value things are. Make sure that you keep those, and then look at everything else. What would ideally I be able to outsource? And only then start looking at, okay, who can I get to do that particular job? Because there's so many jobs in your business. It's ridiculous to expect you to do all of them. And like I say, you don't necessarily even have to pay people. You don't have to pay a lot. And your job is just to go out and do an extra job, or make sure that you increase your prices and that you're worth it, or whatever, to earn the difference. So one of the issues that I find, and I'll try and be as polite and tactful as I can here, is that because your trades require you to be very detailed and perfect and plumb, is that you spend a good 4 or 5 years learning how to make things perfect. And so then the issue is, when it comes time to try and delegate, it's very hard because no one else can do it as well as you. Now the issue about that is, of course, if no one else can do it except for you, then no one else can do it except for you, and then the minute that you try and go away on a holiday, the whole thing falls in a heap, because all of the information about how to do everything is all stuck in your head. So if you truly, truly, truly want to get control of your time, and if you truly want to have the business be able to carry on without you being around all the time, then you need to come to terms with not being a control freak. And you don't have to come to terms with that completely. You can still be a little bit of a control freak. It can be fine. But you need to learn how to delegate properly so that there is proof coming back to you that jobs have been done properly. Not that you're just giving something to someone and hoping that they do it okay, that they're giving you back some sort of proof, whether it be a checklist or a photo or something. They're giving you something back to prove that they've done it right. And that can set your mind at ease a lot, so that you know that there's some evidence coming back to you. Just let me know at the end if you've got a question about that. One of the things that came up that's chewing up a lot of people's time is team, and I know what this is. This is the every 5-minute phone call, and this is what I call the nod and smile, where I had a guy that was sitting in a warehouse, and literally every 2 or 3 minutes one of his team members would come in and say, oh, hey boss, I think I've got a problem here, I'm thinking of doing this, what should I do? And he'd just nod and smile, and then they'd do what they had already suggested. And he was spending all of his time just answering questions that really, if they had thought about it, or if they had asked someone else, or if they had looked up the answer, they would have known the answer to. And so my answer to that is, please teach them to tie their own shoelaces instead of you constantly tying them up for them, because people will go to the easiest way. So if the easiest way is for them to ask you, then they're going to go that way. If the easiest way is for them to do something else, find it out for themselves, then they'll do that. If you make it really, really hard to ask you, like they have to wait till the next day, or you can't get back to them for a while, or they've got to book a time to talk to you or whatever, often they'll figure it out on their own. And then the way to train them to start thinking for themselves, which develops them massively as your team as well, is every time someone asks you a question, what do you think we should do? So they come in and go, boss, the delivery is late, we don't know where to start. And you just say, all right, well, let's look at it. What do you think we should do? If you were in my place, what would you say to start with? And see what they say. And they're either going to say the right thing or the wrong thing. If they say the right thing, go fantastic. See, you're already thinking like me, off you go. If they say the wrong thing, you go, no, well, actually, I would have said this and this is why. But either way, you're going to start to teach them to think like you, which is then going to start, you will see your phone ringing less and less and less. The more you ask this question, the less your phone will ring. Okay, so I'm going to go on to some tools for time management, because what you don't want to do is run over on a time management workshop. Was there any questions about something I didn't explain properly there, Kerry, or are we right to go on?
Right to go on.
Okay, good. Okay, so these are some of the tools that I've used over the time with various people, and so like I said, they all work for different people, so please just take away something that you think is going to help you, and feel free to get in touch if you've got any questions about these. I'm more than happy to help explain. So the first one is the good old paper daily planner, and whether this is just a blank sheet of note paper with a list on it, or whether this is one of these fancy pants ones like what we've got here, is having just a paper diary can go miles. And what you want to put on there is the main things that you need to get done that day. So what are the 3 big rocks of things that absolutely have to get done that day? And make sure that you get those done before you start digressing off into some of the smaller stuff. So good old paper diary. If you don't have that, get onto that. This one was a big thing. This was one of the first pieces of homework that I gave a builder one time, to go out and buy an iPhone. He had this little Nokia, and had massive time management problems. And so one of the first things he did was went out and bought a smartphone, which, as you can see, did a lot of stuff for him, and just even things like being able to look up the weather, being able to find a phone number for a supplier that was late delivering, being able to do videos. I've got a painter that does videos for his quotes. So there's lots of little gadgets in that smartphone that can, if you find that that's something that you're warm to, that can really help you. If we want to go a little bit more technical and a little bit more online, we've got a thing called Dropbox, which you've probably heard of. And Dropbox is great if you've got people working for you, like I said, that aren't necessarily in your state or in your office, that you can actually have essentially like a shared work folder where you can have all of your client files, where you can have all of your checklists, where you can have all of your plans and things, all in the one folder, but that it's on your computer and you can get into it, and it's also on the computer of your bookkeeper, for example, and she can get into it, or it's also on the computer of your person that's sending emails out to your clients. So Dropbox is really easy to set up. It's free up to a certain amount, and it's literally just like having a folder up there in the proverbial cloud. It's like having a folder that someone on a computer somewhere else can access that folder, and so can you. This is one that, as my business got really busy last year, that really was a saving grace for us. And again, this is online, so you can share it with whoever, wherever. And this is called Todoist. And again, this is free up to a certain amount. We ended up upgrading because you could actually email tasks to the program, but it's an online to-do list, and so you can have all of your clients or all of the categories. So you can have accounts, marketing, whatever, and then within that you can have tasks, and they can have due dates, and you can have notes about them, and you can color code them for how high priority they are and stuff like that. And like I said, you can also email straight to it. And I think you can attach documents and things like that as well. So just a nice, simple, free online to-do list that, if visual is your thing, It's a really easy thing to log into every day and go, okay, what are the big things that I have to get done today? And you may find that, rather than having just your paper quotes sitting there in a non-identifiable pile of quotes, going which one do I start with, that if you've got them all in a folder on Todoist that says quotes, it's quite easy to triage and pick out which ones are the two that are the most important that I do, because you'll never have time to do everything when you sit. If you sit down at the computer especially, you'll never have time to do everything. So what you want to do is pick the most important things. Good old Outlook. I use this all the time in my business. Even when I had Todoist, I still used Outlook, so mostly with the calendar. The thing about the calendar is that you can send meeting invitations to people, so even with clients all the time if you're meeting with clients. But you can also colour code things, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But you can colour code all the different things that you've got going on, and then you've also got the contacts of clients in there as well. So if you don't use Outlook, that is a really easy way to start getting things under control. Like I said, all paper diary is fine, but this is good in that you can pick up those meetings and you can literally move them to the next day. So you don't have to scribble things out and write them back in again. Now, I know scheduling had come up a bit. So your main very high-tech piece of equipment you'll need for scheduling is a whiteboard. And this is a very complicated one by the looks of it, but you can use a whiteboard for scheduling really, really well in that you have all of the jobs listed up there, and then you have all of your trades and which jobs they're at, and colour-coded if you like. I've had people use coloured magnets and move their workers around depending on which guys are on which sites. I had a builder that had cut out rectangles of cardboard that were different lengths depending on how many weeks each trade took. So painters had 3 weeks card, and brickies had like a 6-week card, and Sparky had a 1-week card or whatever it was, and they were different length rectangles, and then he would move them along the jobs so that if there was a problem or a delay he could know which ones he had to move down. Hard to explain without showing you a picture of it, but a whiteboard and literally get all your jobs up there, get all your quotes up there, have this front and centre in your office. You can actually buy, my painter has told me, you can actually buy whiteboard paint from Dulux. So you can paint an existing wall in your business and make it into a whiteboard, which probably only me is excited about, but I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, a really simple tool, no bells and whistles. If you don't know how to do this, get one of your teenage children to do this for you. Go into your email and turn off the friggin' little bell that rings every time an email comes in. Turn off the pop-ups of the emails every time an email comes in. Because again, that is doing things based on the priority of the email system, not based on your priority. What you want to do is you want to be able to have to go in and hit send and receive every time you want to check your emails, and then make a judgment about which email you want to answer. So turn off all those automatic notifications with emails that drive me crazy, because they are just distracting you from whatever you've decided is the task that you should be working on. The doctor's visit. So a similar thing is that if one of your close family members or one of your kids was sick and you had to take them to the doctor's, and you walked into the doctor's surgery and there was a sign up that said, please turn your mobile phone off while you're in the surgery because of our equipment, that you would turn your phone off for half an hour or maybe even a whole hour and the world would not stop turning. If you're really, really worried about this, get voice to text so that at least temporarily everyone gets annoyed by voice to text, but at least you'll know if your site manager is trying to desperately get in touch with you because of a crisis, for example. But other than that, put your phone on silent for an hour or two while you're doing a quote. Turn your phone off while you're meeting with a client. The world won't end, and if you stretch your time is 15 minutes at the start, that's okay, because you'll still be amazed at what you get done in 15 minutes without the phone ringing. Once people find it's the same thing as tying your own shoelaces, sometimes once people find that you don't answer the phone immediately, by the time you've rung them back, they've figured it out. 5 minutes planning, starting the day with a list and a desk that's clean. So that's saying at the start of the day, make a list of everything that you need to get through for the day, and then at the end of the day, just create a new list for the next day. That's okay. Like I said, there'll never be a day when the list is finished, even though we would love to tick everything off because that's the sort of people that we are. If there's a box, we want to tick it. But it's okay to simply have a list for the next day, pop that list in a drawer, you've cleaned everything up, and walk away. Try and get everything into either one file in your email or try and get everything into one list. Or, like my business partner has a list for the day that she works on finance, she has a list called finance just in her notebook. And every time it's something to do with finance, she goes and writes that in her notebook on the finance page, and she doesn't look at it until that day. To really get things under control, you need to have, and again, we're talking about control, so we're talking about you being in control of what you're doing when. And so the biggest part of that is having in your head what an ideal week would look like for you. So just in this example here, a lot of the time, if you're project managing on site, then a lot of the time in the morning would be spent on site checking how things are going, or the afternoon, or a couple of hours in the middle of the day, or whatever it is that suits you. So then what I'm saying is set aside some blocks of time. AM and PM is fine for trades. Don't go setting things every hour or two because you won't be able to keep to it. Set aside some blocks of time where you're going to work on quotes. And by doing that every single week, this is where the discipline comes in, because if you work on quotes in the quote time every single week, you will never end up with a massive backlog of quotes. If you work on your accounts once a week for a couple of hours, you will never have to sit and pull an all-nighter on the accounts. And having a toolbox meeting can go in there as well. Make sure you have meetings. And so what this does is by giving every part of the business a little bit of attention every week, nothing ever snowballs on you where you've got a great big lump to deal with. And most important on this chart is having set times for meetings. Now clients may not be able to fit in with those, but they might. So the first thing you want to do is ask them, oh look, I normally come out and see you either on a Tuesday night or on a Saturday morning. Do either of those suit? Now if they say no, neither of those suit, that's okay, and you can make a third time, but we're talking about what does your ideal week look like. So chances are they might say, oh yes, well Tuesday night doesn't suit me, but Saturday morning would be fine. And so they're on Saturday morning, and then the next one, the next client says, well actually Saturday morning doesn't suit me, but I can make Tuesday night work if I come home early or whatever. So people will start making small accommodations for you rather than you making small accommodations for them. And again, like I said, this is putting you in control of the business. And this is my favourite. I presented this to a room full of fences just before Christmas, and they're all still using this one in their business. And if this is some poor soul that sat there and sorted all the Skittles into piles of their colours. And so what this means is taking all the tasks that you have to do in a day and putting them into clusters. So clusters of at least 3. So if you have to make a whole batch of return phone calls, make sure that you sit down and make 3 phone calls at a time. If you have to reply to emails, make sure you sit and reply to 3 emails at a time. So what we're doing is keeping in the same kind of category of task rather than jumping all over the place. And what you find is that you whip through your phone calls a lot quicker if you sit there and do all 10 in a row rather than doing a call, then doing an email, then going out to check on a trade, you know, and jumping all around. So it's that same idea of, okay, I spend every morning on site, so I can tell people that's when to come. I know that I'm going to be on site in the morning. So instead of a client saying to me, is it okay if I come on Friday morning, they'll go, look, I know you're there on Thursday morning, is it okay if I drop by? So by being predictable about when you're doing things, it's going to then start compounding that other people are going to fall into line with what you've set up. But phone calls, especially emails, sending out plans for quotes, make sure you're doing those things in batches of 3 or more, because otherwise you're losing all this time in the changeover from one thing to the other. The average business owner gets interrupted, I think, 18 times a day, and it takes 20 minutes to get back onto the task. So if you're allowing yourself to jump around a lot, you're probably losing heaps and heaps of time just in that changeover, and it's exhausting changing that context all the time. What you want to be doing is feeling, you know, comfortable that you're sort of getting into a bit of a routine. And your number 1 client, this is a great, I don't want to say excuse, but this is a great reason when people want to try, and there will always be people that want to try and push the boundaries and get you out of that routine that you've set up. And so what will happen is if, for example, you have a client who you've already gone out of your way for quite a bit and you really would only like to go see them on a Tuesday night because Wednesday night you're taking the kids to basketball, for example. If you say to that client, look, I'm sorry, I can't come on Wednesday because I am spending time with my family, I'll have to see you on Tuesday. there's a good chance that you either won't say that, or they will not take that as a valid reason, or you won't feel that it's a valid reason because you've given that up in the past because it's a client and they're paying money and blah, blah, blah. So what I find is the easiest way is just to say to that client, I'm really sorry, I can't come and see you on Wednesday because I'm already with a client on Wednesday. Would it be okay if I came and saw you on Tuesday? Because your number one client is yourself. So if you're spending time working on your business, if you're spending time playing golf because that's where you get an outlet, if you're spending time with your family, if you're spending time, one of these workshops, for example, then it's okay to say to a client, look, I'm actually spending time with another one of my important clients, so can I get back to you later on this afternoon? And you'll find that no one will be willing to steal time from another client, but yet sometimes they're willing to steal it from you. And I think one of the last ones is Eat That Frog. This is from a book by Brian Tracy called Eat That Frog. And what it means is that out of your list of stuff that you've got to do is to do the yuckiest, most disgusting thing first. And just get that out of the way and get on with all the other things. And what you'll experience when that thing that you would normally put off, when you just eat that frog and do that most disgusting thing first, is that the rest of the day goes really smoothly and you just have the best feeling from having taken care of that. Sort of like that feeling that you get when you walk out of the dentist after a 6-month checkup and you don't have to go back for another 6 months, is that, you know, that you get that feeling of relief and you have such a high for the rest of the day because you've done that yucky thing first. You've made that phone call, or you've, you know, God forbid, let that person go, or you've finally finished off that quote. Just get the yucky thing done first and then let yourself have a little bit of a pat on the back. Now this picture I left in because I thought it was quite funny, and hopefully there's someone out there of the other 300 of you that thinks that this is funny, but I googled the word inboxes because I wanted to show having separate inboxes for finance and separate inbox for marketing and a separate inbox for quotes, for example, so that you can work on things in clusters. However, I could not find any images of inboxes on the internet. I could only find pictures of cats' inboxes. So here we have a picture of cats in boxes. What I was getting at is having flowcharts for the business where you can literally have different in trays for stuff. So you can have an in tray for quotes that need to be still need to be drawn up. You can have an in tray for quotes that are waiting for trades quotes to come back. You can have a tray of quotes that are waiting for you to put them all together and price it out. You can have a tray of quotes that are priced out, ready to go out and meet with the client. You know, so have some physical ways of keeping things organised in the office, and again it just allows you to be working on things in clusters and to not be spending all your time going, okay, where do I start? Scripts does the same thing, and what Scripts does as well is makes things a bit predictable, and it takes the head work out of what you're going to say next. So in one of my businesses, it's a health business, which is completely out of the industry. And what we do with them is we say, you know, they have a script that they use to ask a client for a referral. So at the end of a session, and you guys could do this at the end of a job, they have the same thing that they say pretty much every time, give or take a personality and what they've already talked about. But they have the general gist of what they say to every single client. Now, if you have a few of those things in your business, if you already know what you're going to type in an email, if you already, you know, have that email typed out, if you already know what you're going to say to a client when you call them back for the first time, if you already know what you're going to say when you go through a quote, what it does is it actually leaves your mind free to be thinking about what's best for the client, what could I do in this situation, to do some of the thinking that makes you really good at what you do. If you already know roughly how you're going to explain a quote to someone, that leaves your mind free to be thinking, oh, they did say that they wanted this and I haven't really covered that. How am I going to cover that once we've gone through the quote? So having some ideas of, you know, again, having things be a bit predictable just gives your mind a bit of a rest and you can get on to the important stuff. One of the last things, we're getting quite near the end now, which is good, we're running on time, is your website. So your website can be used not just for selling your business, and it is absolutely amazing for that, especially for small business. So the website can be used to solve your problems in terms of needing work, but your website can also be used to solve your problem in terms of time, so that if you are explaining the same thing over and over and over and over to clients, you can answer that question on your website and the majority of your clients will read it on your website before they contact you, or you can make it that that's part of that little journey that they go on from your website is reading that information. If you want clients to have plans before they contact you, you can cover that in your website. If you have clients always mistakenly thinking that you do or don't do commercial, if you have clients that are always mistaking you for the builders down the road, if you have clients that ring up and ask you, what's your square metre rate? All those sorts of things can be dealt with in your website, whether it's with frequently asked questions or those sorts of things. So you can also consider your website to kind of head people off at the pass if they're the wrong people, and thereby save you some time. Okay, there's some homework. If anyone feels that they haven't been hammered enough, there's some extra homework that you're able to do, which can help you kind of work out which of your tasks to keep and not keep. So the first one is working out what's important. So quietly important are things that are going to make a difference to your business, but not things that are yelling at themselves to be done. They're not things that have a deadline. So they're things like having a business plan and redoing your website and having a sales process and getting in touch with some new architects, or if you're a tradie, getting in touch with some new builders or real estate. Things that are important but don't have a deadline. So work out what of your tasks are that, and they're the ones that absolutely have to go in there. Loudly important is everything that needs to get done to make the money. It's all the stuff. And so that obviously fills in the next lot of gaps. Mistakenly important are all the things that you think are important but actually get you nowhere. So they're things like speaking to a client who you know you're not going to win, or God forbid doing a quote where you absolutely know you're making up the numbers, or speaking to a salesperson for something that you don't want. Those things all pretend to be important because they're all time sensitive and you've usually got someone yelling at you, but they're actually not important for you. And admittedly unimportant are the things that you are going to have an embarrassed chuckle and go, yes, I do that and I know it's not important, which are all the things that we're doing to get away from what we don't want to do. So looking at Facebook, going to the shops, reading the paper, stopping and chatting to one of the trades for you know, a good hour or so, all those sorts of things. The 4 Ds, what you can do is write down all of the things that you do and then work out which are the ones that you absolutely have to do, which ones can be delegated to others. Even if not now, they can be delegated in the future. Which things should be put off, so deferred till next year or next month or whatever, and which things should I just ditch and stop doing. And lastly, a time study, which basically means writing down everything you do every half an hour for an entire week. It is heinous and it is a really horrible thing to see the results of, because what it generally shows is how much you're jumping around and how much time you're wasting doing stuff you shouldn't. But if you feel like you're jumping around a lot, doing a time study by literally writing down everything that you're doing every half an hour for an entire week can be quite a revelation. So, in closing, I'd like you to realise that as humble as you might be, that you are the biggest asset to your business. So if you stop working, your business will stop working. And so likely at the moment, even being the superstar that you are, probably less than 10% of your time is going towards doing those high value tasks. So imagine if 50% of your time was going towards doing the high value stuff. Imagine how much money you'd make and how much money you could afford to have some other people help you. And so that may not be a reality for you right now, getting other people to help you, but like I said, if you're creative, you can get people to help you for free or for cheap. But carving out a couple of hours a week to start working on the business instead of just doing the day-to-day stuff will straight away start getting you to a point where that's going to be a reality. So, you know, if you don't feel like that's a reality now, then just carve out a tiny little bit of time where you're not doing the day-to-day stuff. Make it first thing in the morning so you haven't been waylaid by other things, and start working on implementing a couple of these little tools. And the last point is you do need downtime to avoid a total breakdown. So whether that breakdown be leaving the industry altogether, whether it be financial or family or stress, or you know that you just become disgruntled and just are not having any fun anymore, you need to have the downtime in between that, and it's actually a required part of the business, not just something that's a luxury. Okay, there's some past webinars that are all on the library which Kerry can show you how to get hold of. So there's some recorded webinars that you're more than welcome to go and download and have a listen to, and some other webinars and workshops that are coming up. So feel free to ask me questions about some of those. And last and not least, but if you are online and you'd like us to have a look at your website, please get in touch with me about that. Or if you're looking at doing what we call AdWords, get in touch. Or jump on the webinar next week where we're going to be talking about it and the week after. Okay, Kerry, how'd it go? 2 o'clock.
Oh, perfect timing. Yeah, now look, I've realised that we're on the hour, so if people have to shoot off because they've had their phones switched off for an hour and have to get back to business, we totally understand. So thank you to everybody who joined us. But we are staying on the line for people who have got questions, and Catherine can hang around for a little while before she has to take off to our office in Melbourne. So just send those questions through. I'll just read them through as I get them, Catherine. Oh, it sounds like a herd of elephants there in the background.
I know, we've got a board meeting going on next door.
No worries. All right, just bear with me and I'll get through these. And we just
Sure.
You mentioned the $50 rule, and Josh lost audio then, so wondered if you could go over it. And I just wanted to point out, somebody pointed out also, if you're going to hire someone, you do have to get the proper paperwork done, and actually we have some of those sort of documents available now for members under HR docs, but if you are looking at outsourcing, you do need to remember about the employment. But if you could just quickly explain that $50 rule, and that also might help out Peter, who said as a sole trader and you don't have anyone to delegate tasks to, what would be your best piece of advice?
Okay, so sort of two different but related things. So yeah, definitely the employment stuff has to be taken care of. But you know, a lot of the time you can go with the ABNs. There's also a couple of websites where you can work with freelancers and they take care of all the employment-y stuff for you and you just pay an hourly rate. So that can be one way with that too. But absolutely make sure you do all of that, but it doesn't have to cost you money to do things properly, is what I'm saying, I guess. And so the one about not having anyone to outsource to, the biggest piece of advice that I would give you firstly is, like I said, work out what are the things that you don't want to do, and work out what are the things that would be of great help to you if they were outsourced, and then look at that list and see if you can come up with some creative ways. And so a great example is uni students. So if you have a uni student that's studying business or marketing or PR or HR, often they will be really appreciative of having a real business to work with as a case study for their study. So if you know anyone that's of uni going age, that's the first place to start looking. You can put something up on maybe Gumtree or things and you might have a hit, but the best way is by word of mouth, is to say, look, we've got an opportunity for a marketing student to help us put together, you know, a new brand or whatever, and see if you can get someone. So that's basically someone volunteering and working with you for free. Again, you can certainly look at employing your children, which my business partner does in our business. She's got 4 and we're up to number 2, with number 3 just about to turn working age. And so we give them tasks like coming in and scanning files in and things like that. And so their wage works out to about $10.50 an hour, I think, which is actually way more than they get at the fast food places. And they're obviously working in an office environment, but for us, compared to getting a receptionist to do it, is massively cheap. So look at what you want to outsource, and you can usually find people that are studying is a really great place to start, and also people that maybe just have the right temperament but not necessarily the skills, who you're happy to, you know, be a bit patient with them while they're learning on the job. So if you have a partner or a relative or a friend that wants to learn a little bit more about bookkeeping but they don't know it yet, they may want to go and do the little TAFE course on MYOB, and you're more than happy to let them take over your books as something to practice on. And what was the first question again about the $50 rule, just to explain it, Kerry? Was that the question? Just to
Josh just missed out on that, so.
Oh, sorry, Josh. Okay, well, basically that means that if you've got something that you don't like doing, or that you don't love doing, I suppose you could say, if you don't have something that you love doing in your business and you could theoretically outsource that to someone for less than $50 an hour, then get rid of it. Because I would much rather that you outsource your bookkeeping, which you don't like, you're no good at, you sit up till midnight doing, you probably stuff it up anyway, you're probably not claiming everything you should be. I'd rather that you pay a bookkeeper for 2 hours at $40 an hour, that's taken care of, and then you spend that extra time either with your family, which is the highest value where you can spend time, or going out and winning a new job. So anything that you hate doing, if you hate mowing the lawn on a Sunday, spend the Sunday with your family, get someone to mow the lawn, and then go back to Monday refreshed and ready to get into business and actually be enjoying it, which enjoying business is a great way to make more profit because you're just more efficient and more, you're more on point when you're feeling positive. So yeah, look at everything. If you hate doing it and it's cost less than $50 an hour to outsource, then that should be your first thing that you're working towards, is getting rid of those things. Bookkeeping's a classic. Unless you're a bookkeeper or you absolutely love accounting, just work towards getting rid of that first.
Great. Okay, and I've had someone ask if you could just explain the 4Ds again. You had a slide showing those.
So the 4Ds, so what you do with that is you write down all of the things that you do in your job. So whether, I usually get people to carry it with them for a week. So just carry a piece of paper in your notebook for a week and write down all of the things that you do. And so what you end up coming up with is a job description for your job, basically. So that if you were to rehire someone to do your job, that's all the things they'd have to do. And then you go through that list with 4 different colour highlighters, and you highlight all the things that you have to be the one doing. So they have to be you. And over time that list gets smaller. At the start you probably want to highlight everything, but you start being realistic about it and you realise that some of them don't actually have to be you. And so then the second colour is everything that you either right now or at some point, magic point in the future when the business is making more money, you could delegate. And like I said, once you know what those things are, then the next step is finding someone, but the first step is knowing what they are. Then you work out which things can be put off. So if there's some things that, we really need to, I'm just trying to think. We really need to look into that home show, for example, and it's been killing you because you can never get around to it. And then you look at it and go, well, do you know what? It doesn't really matter if we don't go to that because we could do some online advertising instead. So why don't we just put that off and we'll have a look at it next year because I'm really busy at the moment. So some of the things can be deferred. And then the last one is ditch. So what are the things that I just need to stop doing? If I look at all the things that I do in my job, what are the things that I don't need to delegate to anyone else? We just need to stop doing them altogether. Am I doing quotes for someone who I know I'm just making up the numbers for? If so, I'm going to give them a call. I'm going to say, hey, no disrespect, but I think I'm making up the numbers for you. Is that the case or not? And if they say, no, not at all, and then you win the next job, that's great. Or if they say, yeah, I don't think it's going to work, at least you've saved all that time. So what are the things that you're doing that you just need to cut out?
Okay, I think that tip you had also about the emails was a good one. It's something I definitely need to do because I do get very easily distracted. So I love to try and get back to people's emails really quickly, and it's probably not necessarily the best use of my time.
It's actually not good, like even for, especially for owners of the business, it's not good to seem that available either. But the worst thing you can do, if someone's in an office 24/7, and then they send you an email, so a property manager, for example, they're in the office Monday to Friday 9 to 5, and then they send a tradie an email, and then he sends an email straight back. That has just created this perception that the next time they send him an email, he'll send an email straight back. But the next time they send him an email, he might be on the other side of town doing a job, and he won't get back to him until the next day. And so I always think you have to leave a delay in answering those emails, otherwise people get a bit spoiled and they expect a response all the time. And so, the other thing, you can do a lot with your emails. If you get a lot of emails, you can file things into folders that match the day that you should work on them, do you know what I mean? And again, just allows you to come back into clusters. But yeah, don't be too available. It's the worst thing. It's the rod for your own back.
I have to be because I'm looking after my members, so I am available, but our members don't need to be. I think that is a good point.
No, I'm speaking to them.
It is a good point, though, that, yeah, sometimes I know my husband gets calls from customers at all times of day and night, and it does give that expectation that when he doesn't answer the phone that, what's wrong, why aren't you answering my calls? So we've had a few people asking about employing people, and just to get some clarification on that, if you are looking to employ people, check with our workplace advisors. If you're a member, you can call our workplace advisors, and depending on which state you live in or work in, they can give you information on how to employ people. I know some people haven't employed people before, so it's definitely they're the people to run any of that past, because they can get down into the details of what your business and what contracts you need and what pay rates and that sort of thing. So, and just to let
and a lot of the time, sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, and everybody who's sent their thank you, and we will be sending out a recording, so don't worry.
Yeah. So what I was going to say with that too is a lot of the time you can start with someone on an ABN, so it's just like having another contractor. You don't have to employ someone for until quite a way down the track, really. So with a bookkeeper, they're always going to have an ABN, and they also are going to probably be able to help you if you do need to go down the becoming an employer route, which is just a form to fill out anyway. But if you do have to do that, if you've got a good bookkeeper, they can be quite invaluable as well in just helping you along there.
Okay, Jeff's asked, when you're talking about emails and filing, do you recommend shifting emails to a done file once you've done, or is that just double handling? I know some people like to have that clear inbox. I don't do it because I'm no good at filing, but I know a lot of people think that is the way to go. What's your opinion?
My opinion, I actually have 7 email inboxes at the moment for different businesses and bits and pieces, a couple of clients I've got inboxes for and stuff like that. So 7 different email addresses, so you can imagine. And for a long time I filed things. Now I would say, and this will terrify many people, if you know you're not going to need it, just think about how many emails you've actually looked back up in the past, and they tend to all fall into one category. They were all about quotes, or they were all from suppliers or whatever. File those ones, delete everything else. So I just hit delete a lot of the time, especially if they're just conversations. If someone's CCing me in, I'll often just delete them now. I do like to have a clear inbox, but mostly what I do is I move emails into folders for when I'm going to work on it. So if I have an email about a webinar, for example, Kerry, I'll move that into my folder about presentations. And so then when I sit down on a Wednesday morning to look at what training I'm doing for people, then I will go to that folder and see all of the unread emails that I need to deal with. So again, it's sort of putting things there until the right time.
Okay, great. Chris says, I have a messy office with papers everywhere. I tidy it but doesn't stay tidy for long. Are there any templates or plans or ideas available for setting up my office so I can deal with the paperwork efficiently? I think it's a common problem, Chris.
It's a very common problem. Look, I think a good trip down to Officeworks, I'm a big fan. So with all those papers is, you can actually employ professional organisers that are not very expensive that come in and help you work out your office. I have details for a couple, so depending what state you're in, I'm more than happy to pass them on. But basically what you want to do is you need to sit there, and it normally has to be a Sunday or a night because, and get everything and put it in a pile, and instead of trying to sort it out, put it into categories. And so then, this is a pile of all of the stuff from suppliers, this is a pile of or whatever, and work out what you need to have visible and what can be tucked away. But, if you know that all of your price estimates from tradies are all in this particular in tray over here, then that's where they are. You can go there and find them at any given time. So yes, I'm a big believer in lots and lots of in trays. And you can get those in trays that have got the 5 drawers. They can be good if you only got little bits of paper. But in trays and things like that where you can grab stuff in and out is better than trying to put things in folders, because you just won't do it, because then you have to go and frig around with the folders to get back out again. So yeah, so that would be my biggest thing, is just to go down to Officeworks and buy yourself 10 in trays, and you'll find some of those white labels so you can write what goes in them, and it's like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, you always feel better, don't you? It's like when I tidy my desk up and I say, that's it, I'm not going to let it get messy again, and I inevitably do. But as Lee mentioned, you know, it's a bit of a mindset. You've just got to get yourself into that zone, and she talks about placing a value on growing a business, and I think it's really true, Lee, the points that you've made. Jennifer asked, we mentioned you talked about checklists for delegating.
Yep.
Bit more about that? Not sure if you covered that.
No, I didn't really, because it sort of wanders into a systems workshop, if you know what I mean. But basically, I'm glad you picked up on it, because I love to explain it, you know, once my little time limit's over. So I'm a big believer in you don't need an operations manual until it's time to sell the business, because what is the point in sitting down and writing all that text and no one reading it? Because let's face it, everyone in a small business knows how to do what they do. They don't need to refer to an operations manual. So what I like is using checklists, so that you have a checklist for the task from beginning to end. So a good example is taking something through the process of preparing a quote. And so you might have a folder, and on the front of that folder is a checklist that has someone has gone through and put some of this quote into one of the software programs, or someone has sent the plans off to the plumber, tick, sent the plans off to the timber place, tick. And so what it does is, you know, you can have an operations manual down the track. If someone doesn't know how to do one of those checkboxes, they can go and look at the manual. But for people that know how to do their job, the checkboxes is just an accountability thing to make sure no one forgets anything. And if someone else, you know, I've got clients where the husband and the wife sharing the one checklist, so that she does it down to a certain point, and then he does the next few boxes, and then he hands it back to her, and then she does some boxes, and so it just keeps everyone on track of where they're up to. So with delegating, so to give you an example, you might have a checklist or even a list. So if you go on site and you say to your trades, these are the 4 things I want you to do today, the worst thing you can do is just tell them and have them stand there nodding at you, and then you walk away and you know that they don't remember what you've said, which is actually quite normal, because people don't go into trades because they're good at listening. They go into trades because they're good at using their hands, and so the listening people are usually not in this industry. And so what you want to do is give them a little pocket notebook and get them to write a list of what they need to do that day. So that essentially makes that a checklist, and then they cross them off. And so the evidence part of it comes when they show you that crossed off checklist, or they give you back that checklist. In the health clinic, we have a reception daily checklist where they have to tick every box before they finish their shift, so that we know all of those day-to-day things that have to be done have been done. And so that is a way, without being there for that day, we know that they've done all of those things because they've checked the box on the checklist. And we get them to sign it as well, which is just some magic way of making people more accountable.
Okay, great. Now, did you mention, sorry, I'm reading questions as you're speaking, so you may have covered this, but it's been a question that's come up a bit, is about the auto-filing of emails as they come in. So I think did you mention that you can set up folders so that they automatically you know, go into those folders when they arrive?
No, I didn't mention it, but I can quickly show you how.
Okay, because I know that's something that Jeff would be interested in. And just while you're doing that, I'll just let you know, Peter said that if he needs to keep emails, he saves them on his computer and clears out his inbox. And he also has a folder for emails that he's been CC'd on, and he can review those at the end of the week. So that's just a tip on what Peter does.
Yep. That's a great tip. That's a great tip. Okay. So with you can have automatic rules on your emails, and what that will do is it will automatically shove them into a folder. What I use that for, I don't use that for a lot of things, but what I use that for is for email newsletters, because it is only certain times that I am in a position to sit down and read other people's email newsletters, but I really want to, because there's things in there that are going to be that 5 minutes spent is going to give me an idea that's going to take my business forward. Sorry about So those are sorts of things where, you know, you can have, okay, all the emails from my accountant, for example, can automatically end up in a folder for finance. So I can't be tempted by seeing them in my inbox. I'll just have to look at them on the day that I'm working on finance, which is Friday morning or whatever that day is. And so the easiest way to do that is when an email comes in, so we'll see, okay, so Jenny here, she's one of my staff. So you just right mouse click on the email, and then we say go down to here where it says rules and create rule. And so then you can pick, I want all the newsletters, I want all the emails from this person, or I want all the emails with this subject. And we don't want to ever do these, do we? No, never do these. But we do want to move them into a folder. And so I could get all my emails from Jen, for example, and I could get them, see what I mean about my inboxes, and I could get them to go into staff. So if I hit OK, every email that Jenny sends me will get filed away in staff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is being recorded.
It is.
Too, so you can come and watch.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That,
everyone can read my email.
that you can watch it over and over and get it right. Okay. VJ's asked, what in your experience, what in Catherine's experience is more efficient these days for day-to-day planning? The good old paper-based or electronic?
I suppose that depends entirely on the person using it. It really does. You know, I know that's a bit of a flimsy answer, but different things are so much better for different people. I have a lot of people who love the iCal, and I know that a lot of things can sync with that. So if you're on a Mac or you've got an iPhone, the calendar in there. And I also know a lot of people that use Outlook religiously, because Outlook actually has task management, has a section called tasks as well, so you can actually have your to-do list in there. So electronic's going to give you that flexibility of that you can move things around, so that if this meeting's changed from this Monday to next Monday, it's just a click of a button and it's changed. So if you're keen to try one of those out, Outlook's probably one of the best places to start for that, I think, or just your phone.
Okay, now Will has asked, I'm interested in the comments on systems being easier than discipline. Have you got any suggestions on how to encourage discipline? Nicely.
Again, it's exactly, yeah, nicely. It depends whether it's for yourself or for others, I guess. If it's for yourself, like I say, it is easier to have a system. It's easier to go, okay, I'm going to say to every client, look, I prefer to come out on Tuesdays, does that work for you? That's a system. The discipline is saying, no, every time I sit down at my computer, I'm only going to work on finance stuff. That can be hard. So in terms of the discipline, the best way to do that is to have, you know, the carrot and the good old carrot and the stick. But have, you know, so if we're talking about doing quotes, which a lot of the time we are, is setting a goal for the number that we're going to do, and then you have the carrot. So I think you want to give yourself a really understanding of what you're giving up if you don't have some discipline around your time. If you let work take up every hour of every day, that you keep in your mind what you're giving up because of that, which is always a lot. And that can help you kind of make those decisions to know, go, okay, well, this client might be very important, but they're not more important than my kids, for example. So that can be the stick. And then the carrot can be, okay, well, if I finish these 2 quotes, then I will have done everything I need to get done today, and I'm going to go and I'm going to have the afternoon off, or I'm going to go and I'm going to spend some time with my family doing what I want to do or something. So I suppose for each person it's a case of finding what's the thing that you really don't want to happen because you're spending too much time working, and what's the thing that if you do get what you do need to be done, then you can give yourself a reward.
Okay, William's asked, if quoting is a problem, are there any programs available to help with this process? I think there's a fair few out there, aren't there, Catherine? I'm not sure.
There's a bazillion.
Yeah. and I'm not sure if we know.
There's a bazillion.
Yeah.
Look, I know of a few. I certainly wouldn't go as far as recommending any, and I think the best thing you could do there is go to a trade night and then speak to some of the other guys about what they're using and what they think, or go to one of the conferences or something like that. So speak to some other people in the industry about what they're using. But a lot of builders are using Excel as a starting point to help them not have to work things out on a calculator every single time. So if you're really keen to start automating that, just do a short Excel course or watch some YouTubes about Excel and start to figure out how to make your life a bit easier there.
Yeah, and William, you could also contact the technical advisor in your local area, HIA technical advisor, and they'll probably be able to send you out a list. We aren't able to recommend one over the other for obvious reasons, but probably good to have a list to start with. And I know we've done some articles in Housing Magazine as well, which gives you a little bit of a background on what the various ones are. But I think Catherine's suggestion of talking to some of the other guys is probably the best way to get an honest opinion of them. Okay, Deborah's asked, what is the best filing system available to deal with client folders? I'm looking at the lateral filing system by Office Choice. Do you know of a better system?
I don't know of the lateral filing system.
I was going to say, it sounds very technical, Deborah.
It does. For client folders, I mean, it would depend on how many clients you had, I guess. No, I wouldn't, until I had a look at what she's talking about, whether it's something digital or whether it's an actual filing system in your office. But I think, one of the challenges with client files is that half of it's on the computer and half of it's on paper.
Yeah,
so
Deborah's said that she's been trying to scan every document into client folders on the computer, and boy, what a job it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That is something to do. If you're a reasonable sized business, then yes, you do need to do that, but you need to get someone else to do it, who's generally 15 or 16. If you're not a massive size business, if you're doing less than 20 projects a year, you really don't need to do that because you've got other things that you could be doing. So in that case, I just make sure that you've got a paper file and a computer file and an email folder, for example, for every client. And so you've only got 3 places to look to find something.
Okay, Jeff's asked, can Outlook sync with a smartphone? So can you get your calendar on your smartphone or your emails on your... I can get emails on my smartphone, I know that. Or do you recommend an app?
Emails. No, emails you can definitely get on your phone as well as on your computer. So you can get them on Outlook and then you can also get them on your phone. And you can set it up so that you can only read them on your phone, but then they also download on your computer. So I use my phone for email screening. So I download my emails and just check if there's anything urgent that I'll need to look at when I get on the computer. I never usually reply on my phone. As far as the calendar, you definitely can. You definitely can. I'm just trying to remember how, but you definitely can have your Outlook tasks come up on your phone. And definitely you can go across between, you can go between your iCal and Outlook. So your iCal, which is the calendar program on your phone on Mac products, can sync with Outlook. So I can send a calendar item to someone on a Mac and they'll get it in their calendar, so I can also get it on my phone.
Okay, great. Angela's asked, any method for timesheets or apps the guys can use on site? There is a few apps for timesheets, but off the top of my head I don't know, and I think like I said, the technical or the members section of the HIA might be a really good place to start, but there is definitely some really good apps that are free for timesheets. I know my husband, who runs a pub, was looking at one that had people sort of checking in at what time they started work and all this sort of stuff. So I know that there's definitely that's one of the great things now, is there's some really good stuff out there that's free or really, really cheap. But I don't know off the top of my head any, but like I say, I think the HIA would be a great place to start for that. Okay, yeah, a couple of the guys have said, it should sync. Sync on your sync on your smartphone. Deborah just asked, you know how we were talking before about emails going straight into those inboxes for those files you set up, but you've turned the alarm off or the alert off. how do you know that you've got a new email? Do you need to just remember to check every day? Or I think in my case they still stay, it's sort of,
bold.
yeah.
Yeah, they show up as bold, which means they're unread. So as long as you can see the folder will change to being in bold, so you can see that there's an email in there that's unread. So then you know you need to look at it.
Great. All right, I think we're coming to the end of our questions. I'm just going to have a quick scroll down and hopefully I've asked them all. Sorry. Yeah, if anybody's got a question, just quickly type it in now because we, Catherine, you probably have to run. Just a reminder, yep, we do have another website webinar happening next week, which is always popular. So I think it'll be about the third time we've done that one. So don't forget to turn up next Wednesday. Catherine, you got that in your diary?
I have, and then the week after that is the one about Google and SEO. So if anyone is getting calls from people harassing them about Google and SEO, that's the one to be on.
Yep. So actually one last question. Deborah said, if using Xero accounting, so she's just letting people know that if using Xero accounting, a timesheet app for each employee is available that integrates directly with the accounting software. Thanks for that, Deborah. See, our members know.
And Xero doesn't. Yeah. Xero is like the new best thing for small business. It does a few things that Mile doesn't do. So that's how much I know about Xero, but I know that it does that.
Yeah, I know they've got those, just those add-ons that are really handy for small businesses. Matt has said thank you, and he'll see you at 4. So thank you, Matt.
That's not a day. That's
that's the workshop.
At the AKA.
That's right. It's more work. That's right. So, and we will wrap it up now. So thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jeff, sending through, and thanks, Deborah. Just said a brilliant workshop. So thank you. So as I said to people, we will send out a recording. If you've got questions about employing people, if you're unsure, double check with our workplace advisors, and if you need to know about computer programs that can help you, try our technical team. That's what they're there for. So thank you everybody for attending. We have gone a bit over time, so if you have any suggestions for other webinars, just fill out the survey at the end. So have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you. Bye.